Welcome to the Business Therapy Show. Stay tuned for our next taping. It was such a great episode last time. We had to bring this guest back a second time. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
With over 17 years of experience as an entrepreneur, Brandon Powell knows what it feels like to struggle while navigating the market. Likewise, whether you have just started your company or been dominating your industry for over 15 years, we all have needed clarity and inspiration. Regardless of your industry, profession, or service, the Business Therapy Show was created to showcase your journey. You have a story to tell. We are excited to discover how you have navigated the market, overcome roadblocks, and gained business clarity during moments of darkness. Welcome to the Business Therapy Show.
Once again, welcome to the Business Therapy Show. I'm your host, Brandon Powell. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. As I mentioned before, our guest is quite captivating. We got a lot of good feedback, so we brought him on to the show once again. Let's get right to it. Well, first, for our audience that may not have seen our first taping, the Business Therapy Show is about professionals and entrepreneurs who've gone through the journey of just learning lessons through just failure and just recovering from it and experiencing those moments of darkness and getting that clarity that's needed. And there is not a better person that I would have preferred to be here today than our guest, once again, Nicholas Willis Sr.
Thanks
Good
for
to
the
see you,
invite.
man. Yeah,
Thanks for the invite.
Glad to have you again. For those that did not get a chance to check out the first taping, there's no spoilers here, so you can watch this one, but we certainly encourage you to watch the first episode just so you can get a sense of getting to know Nick. Today, we're going to dive deeper into his latest project. You've got a book that's coming out, and again, tell our audience, for those that did not get a chance to see the first episode, tell us the title of the book, and we're going to dive deeper into that. So what's the book?
The book is called Physically Married, Emotionally Divorced, and really what it boils down to is keys of the heart. The question becomes, how do you inspire belief when you've had experiences in your relationship that have taken that belief away from you? Okay,
all right. So we're going to dive deeper into that, and I promise you, when we filmed, for those that are not familiar with the taping style, we typically have an audience that is invited, and then after that, we get a chance to spend time with each other. We go out to a local restaurant and we fellowship. We get a chance to build friendships and relationships, and so there was so much great post filming feedback. And again, they were asking questions, and of course, if you ever get a chance to meet Nick, you'll know that he's great at table topics. So he's going to make sure to ask all the right questions to get you thinking while you're chewing your food. So today we're going to dive right into it, and I'm going to start off with a light question. Okay. I don't know if it really is light, but I'm just going to ask anyway. What would you say in relation to the book is the most common question you get asked about relationships?
That's not a light question. It's a complicated question, because I think instead of talking about the common question, that question, it probes me to think about a significant question that I've been asked several times. And the question was, I don't care if I'm in an Uber or if I'm standing in line in a grocery store and we have a conversation, the question always, how do you know when it's time to leave?
Leave what? Are
the relationship.
Leaving the line or leaving the store?
Yeah, if I bring up the title of the book, the first thing people tend to talk about is leaving.
Leaving?
Yeah, they associate the experience with a departure from a relationship.
Oh, wow.
Physically married, emotionally divorced. Okay, now, what's my indicators that I need to leave?
Are you inspiring people to exit?
No, man, of course not.
Okay.
Of course not. I think sometimes we process the things around us by virtue of our own interpretation, and sometimes by virtue of what we want out of something. We're just trying to ask permission from people.
Oh,
and I can tell you now, I don't give permission to people to leave a relationship. Yeah. But I think that's a very significant question, when people ask me that, and it comes out in various ways. But I'm not qualified to tell somebody to leave a relationship. Let me just start there. But let me try to wrestle with that. I think sometimes we find ourselves in relationships, and those relationships have run out of fuel because we haven't fueled them. We haven't fueled them, or we have contributed to the detachment that we experience in our relationships. And I think sometimes the result is some people linger and some people leave. Although I don't encourage people to leave, I don't encourage them to linger either. I think it's important that we just begin to evaluate what is it that's important to us in a relationship, and are we experiencing those things? Sometimes it may be necessary for us to go seek professional help and get the expert opinion of somebody who's sat and really wrestled with some of the concepts that you find in therapeutic sessions.
That's very interesting. I can understand why people would kind of knee-jerk response and ask that question, because like you said, subconsciously they may have already had that thought in their head, and so they want some kind of confirmation bias to hey, you know what? But then you don't want to give permission to that, because then if they transition, then they're thinking, hey, Nick, I met this guy Nick and he told me to leave, and it's like
No, don't leave. Don't, especially if I say it, don't leave. that you have chosen to be in that relationship for some reason. The problem is you just probably forgot why. You're probably being reminded on a day-to-day basis of what's not enjoyable about that relationship. But I think the other questions become, what is enjoyable about it? Or how do we revisit what we once had or aspired to be as a couple? I think those are some foundational questions that people should begin to ask themselves before they start talking about leaving.
You know what? I'm gonna be a little direct with what came to my mind when you explained that, because it's a great point. I'm bringing up the word lazy came up, and I'm gonna correlate it with your analogy about fueling it. Do you think that sometimes one or both parties can get lazy, and to the point that they, you don't put the right fuel in? You can't put unleaded in certain vehicles.
Yeah, I think a few adjectives pop up. Lazy is one. How about exhausted? Could be another one. How about just in despair? Sometimes we go through stuff in our lives where it just really take the joy out of us. We have 3 seasons. I read a book one time. I can't think of the name of the book, but it had to do with Bible study devotions. He talked about we had 3 seasons in our lives. We have season of orientation where life makes sense. We have seasons of disorientation where just life don't make sense. And then we have another season of reorientation where life is starting to make sense. And I think at any given moment, we could find ourselves being in different seasons than our spouse. And we experience the reality of that in our relationships. Yeah.
That's a great point and great thought. Again, you guys, if you are tuning in and listening or watching this, I think this is very insightful, and it gives a chance to talk about the subject that sometimes are in people's head. And you have a great ability, especially with table topics, of asking the questions that people haven't really formed the words to, but you can tell that that's something that they really want to explore. So I've got another question for you that may have been asked. You may have been asked this question. Can single people benefit from reading this book, and if so, how?
Yeah, I think this got to be on your reading list as a single person, because what the book really talks about more than anything is self-awareness. If I say it before, I say it again, if you're going to engage in a relationship where intimacy is the goal, people are going to run into your relationship trauma before they experience the reality of your relationship potential. And what that simply means is we have to become so aware of ourselves. What has shaped me to be the person that I am? And then what are the barriers that keep people from getting to my true self? And after my divorce, I had to sit down and think through that, man. And I realized that a lot of the things that I blamed her for, I had created barriers that prevented her from getting close enough to me to know who I was. And then I created this narrative that she don't even know who I am. But I never took responsibility that one of the reasons that she didn't know who I was is because I created walls.
Wow.
And I didn't give her access. Now, if those walls were justified or anything like that, that's another conversation. But the truth is sometimes we don't get what we want out of a relationship because we create barriers from experiencing the things that we say we want.
Wow. Wow. You know, as I'm listening to you, words are kind of popping up in my head. And we tend to like saying these words like closeness, intimacy, transparency, and nakedness, in the sense that you can see all of who I am. Do you think people theoretically want that? And then in reality, talk about what you've noticed, that if someone says, I want transparency and I want to be able to see all of who you are, talk about the responsibility of that and the grace that comes with that, if at all.
Yeah. Normally when we say we want transparency, it's because we want more insight to something that's unknown. So we're saying that a lot of times from a distance, but transparency requires a closeness.
Right.
The more transparent I open up and become, the more you get into the core of who I am. The closer you get to my core, the more you experience my wounds. The more you experience my wounds, the more you change your mind and decide, I don't want to be a part of your life at all. So it's like, it's such an oxymoron. It's like, I want it, but I don't want to experience what it takes to have it. So when you talk about some of the responsibilities of intimacy, we describe intimacy in early parts of the book as the desire to be known and loved. And I wish that was it. The more you learn something about somebody, the more grace it requires to be in a relationship with that person.
Okay. You know what that also makes me think about is a person that is single. Is it required of them to extend grace? What's the threshold? Because just because I want intimacy and I want closeness, does that mean that the next person I meet, regardless of their level of trauma or wounds, that I should just accept that?
No, that's a good question. And I wish I would have expounded on that a little bit more. Here's what I discovered. When I went through a divorce and got into another relationship, that relationship came with people who were in my life that I was being transparent about where I was and what I was thinking about getting into. Now, the reason that was so valuable is because they knew my blind spots. They observed the person that I had before me, and then they were aware of my blind spots. It's something about the character of this person, and then that blind spot that you have, I could see a problem. So there's just increased awareness about who you are as a person. So it goes back to the foundational theory that if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, you first got to get to know who you are.
Wow.
And there's some parts of ourselves that we don't really know. And I think having people around you, friendships, even people of the same sex, homeboys, homegirls, whatever, dynamic you're in, the reality of it is those people, they help you know you. Because they have to endure you. They have to experience you. And you may have every intent to come across a certain way, but the truth is a person's experience of you is also a way you can get to know yourself.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Well said. It made me think also, well, it'll come back to me. There's so many thoughts. You know how when we have conversations, we're kind of like all over the place. We'll pull at threads, but I think this is a great thread to keep pulling at. So, but I will ask this question, and I probably will come back. This is more for you. How have you evolved since the initial stages of even writing this book?
Yeah, that's a good question. I used to be, my life was performance. It's like a circus clown. What does the audience want to see today? They want to see me walk the tightrope? Okay, cool. Let me perform. And people want to laugh? Okay, good. I'll crack a joke. A lot of what I did, it was out of trauma. It was out of my wounded places. It was out of insecurity. And I think the difference between when I first started writing this project and then now completing it is I've experienced some healing. I'm aware of my triggers. I'm aware of what I can control, what I can't control. I still have moments where I struggle with them. But for the most part, I'm aware of it.
Right.
I'm aware of it. And I also have tools to help me navigate those dark places in my life.
I like that. You know, when we have these kind of conversations, you almost want to kind of chew on it a little bit and just let it marinate. And so I do remember something that I did think about earlier from when you were talking. You talked about despair. And I have this thought process of when you're in a relationship, everybody has what I call pockets of despair. Those moments where you had a disagreement or the intimacy is just not, the closeness is not there, and you have these pockets or these windows of time where, whether it's a day or two or a week that goes by where you're relationally vulnerable. Can you speak to how to manage those pockets of despair to make sure that when it's time to reconcile, you posture yourself in a way that you can still be available to that and you don't compromise yourself during those pockets of despair?
Yeah, I spoke to insecurity, just being insecure. And one of the things I would do often was I would compartmentalize my relationship. In other words, if we went through something and my despair was always linked to identity, right?
Right.
So if it came across as if she was questioning who I was or questioning something about me, that would trigger me deeply. Because in my mind, even though I knew I was performing, I still wanted to be received as genuine because I was doing the act. You see what I'm saying? Give me credit for doing the act, even if you don't trust that it's from a sincere place. That's how I thought back then. And I think it created this level of despair not being trusted. So I'm saying, so I created these compartments that only gave her access to these things that she considered to be good about me. And I performed in other areas. But what happened was, as a consequence, there was a big part of me that was not being accepted. And I think as human beings, it's important that our good things are accepted, but even our bad things are accepted.
Right.
And sometimes we draw the line with the good things. But what I'm trying to say is, it got to a point where it was the relationships around me that I had begun to cultivate that allowed me to navigate those despairing moments. Because it's always about what you're telling yourself and what the people around you are telling you to help you remember who you are. Because it's so easy to drift into those hopeless thoughts and places in your life. And then as a consequence, so many other areas of your life get affected.
You know, when you said that, it reminded me of a scene in the movie. For those watching, you may pick up on this. He said in the movie, "Remember who you are."
Lion King. Yeah, already. That's my movie. That's my jam.
So
bro.
my mind went. That's just
Okay.
show you how I went to a cartoon movie. But the phrase was significant in the movie. Obviously, I'm goofy. I'm joking about it. But he was talking about the identity, remembering who you are, and I think that brings a question: what if you don't? What happens when you're in a relationship and in real time, you're discovering who you are. And I think that's vulnerable because you are discovering who you are in front of your partner.
Yeah.
And so it's new to both of you guys. How do you manage that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that self-awareness piece. But even if you bring up that movie, let's play with that movie, because that echo and the way you just said it, it was at a point in the movie where Simba had run away from his roots, and he had begun to embrace something about himself that was not really who he was.
Right.
So the whole memory and the echo of remember who you are.
You said it better than
Yeah,
I
I
did.
know I did.
Remember
I tried
who
to
you
set
are.
myself up just so I could say it. Remember who you are. Like, even that whole setting, it was built around you're living a lie.
Yeah.
This is not what you've been created to be. And I think that's the starting point. I always encourage people. One of my favorite books is by Dr. Miles Monroe. He said, if you want to know the purpose of a thing, you got to go back to the one who created it. And so many times in life, we try to find purpose in what we want for ourselves or what other people want from us. And there's no purpose in that.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. Well, as I'm processing all this, and of course, we're kind of going off script. I'm just kind of being in the moment and being present, which that makes me think about another question. I'm gonna try to be good. Let me ask you this question. What is the difference to you, if there's any, between tolerance and patience in a relationship?
Okay. Here's the quote. Intimacy, it can't be sustained unless love is applied. I think the difference between tolerance and patience is love. I think patience has its roots in love. Tolerance, I don't know exactly what that is. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe fear. Maybe from a place of manipulation, control, but it's not love. Patience, it comes from a place of love. And I think what it looks like is tolerance is looking at somebody as if, man, he ain't gonna change. But love is looking at somebody saying, he'll get there.
Right.
It'll take time. She'll get there. She don't know how to cook right now, but she'll get there.
Right.
He don't know how to do certain things to excite you right now, but he'll get there. I know that'd go a whole nother conversation too,
Right.
but the reality of it is, tolerance is just looking at somebody in disgust, like this is who you are. But patience is like you're just not there yet. I think the difference is love.
That's good stuff. I think with that being said, I want to encourage people, for those that are watching now, I want to encourage you to get your copy of this book. I think you're going to find that it is beneficial to you regardless of what stage you are in your relationship. I think whether you feel like you have a great relationship and everything's going well, you may be watching this and saying, hey, look, it's great information, don't need it right now, all is well in our relationship. I think publicly we all can say things like that, even when I was in my marriage. But I think privately we all have things that we could work on and get a little bit better at. So how can people get access to this book? How can they, let me ask you this, do you do trainings and group setting sessions?
Most definitely. As a matter of fact, right now for the next 7 weeks, we're doing a group setting with some friends. This is a great opportunity because when we talk about the 9 layers of intimacy that are discussed in the book, I'm gonna just run through them real quick. And we have early encounters, shared adventures, heartfelt revelations, emotional deep dives, intellectual harmony. If you listen to the first video, you'll see what each stage represents. You have spiritual connection, resilience through challenge, and finally, vision sharing. And what this 7-week course gives us the opportunity to do is to plan a future with both people in mind. You'll be surprised how many times we come to the table and start to ask questions about your relational future, your financial future, and two individuals are saying two separate things. That's creating detachment already.
Right.
So when you look at from a visionary perspective of, okay, here's where we are and this is where we want to go, it gives couples the opportunity to do something and see something for themselves together. It's an engaging experience, and I'm telling you, within the context of this group, over 7 weeks, our relationships with our spouses have been growing closer and closer and closer. It's a dynamic workshop style environment. If you guys are interested, then send us a message and we'll tell you how to set one up for you.
Absolutely. Again, for those that are watching today, are you on social media? How can they get in contact with you?
Nicholas Willis, the Nicholas Willis. Facebook is the best way. We do have TikTok and all that other kind of stuff, but if you find us on one, then you'll be able to find us on all. Nicholas Willis, you can find us on Facebook. The book is Physically Married, Emotionally Divorced. Another key word is Connection Warrior. Type any one of those words in and you'll see us pop up.
All right, sounds good. Well, there you have it, guys. I would encourage you again to watch the first interview just to kind of connect them together. I'll be honest with you, we probably could do a series together on this topic and other topics because, you know, we like to think and just discuss things in dialogue. And I'm sure you all at home probably have friends. And I would encourage you, if you don't, find at least one or two people in your life that you can have these kind of conversations with in depth. And I usually say this about receiving help. There's 3 elements of it: heart, intent, and capacity. Many times we want to get around people who can be a resource to us that we can open up to. They need to have the heart for it, meaning they have the compassion. They have the compassion for it. And then the intent is beyond just, hey, sympathy. They actually now want to step forward and intentionally do something about it, which leads to the third one: have the capacity. Capacity comes in the form of, are they overextended, or do they have the competency to do anything about it? Be watchful, be mindful of who you share with, but I'm certainly grateful for the people in my life, and I know Nick has people in his life as well that can provide that support. So again, thank you for tuning in with the Business Therapy Show. We're grateful for our guest today, Nicholas Willis Sr. His book is being launched. By the time you're watching this, I'm sure it'll be well in progress, and you'll be able to get a copy in your hand very soon. The book being Physically Married, Emotionally Divorced. Get your copy today. Thank you for tuning in once again. Keep being amazing. Your business is always worth it.